All right, Thursday almost there. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. As tensions rise in the Middle East, the world's waiting on one decision. According to reports, President Trump says he's close to authorizing a massive attack against Iran. Could tonight be the night? Let's just get this over with, man. The markets need it. We'll keep you posted as we learn more. Plus, abortion expands in Massachusetts. The Massachusetts House has passed a bill easing the state's current restriction on abortions up until birth. Now, all eyes turn to the state Senate, where the next vote could decide the fate of this law. And a security breach where security matters most. A member of J.D. Vance's Secret Service detail has been removed over allegations of compromising sensitive security information. Now investigators are weighing criminal charges. Yeah, big time. Just asking how far the breach actually went. But first, the movie Terminator was a warning, not a blueprint, guys. Let's do this. All right. Remember how I'm always warning you, how the machines are going to come get us one day and AI needs to be carefully checked. Well, it happened, actually. Think about this. The device you are watching this program on, the phone in your hand, maybe even your smart refrigerator, was just proven to be hackable at the speed of light by AI at the behest of some unknown programmer for a different goal. An open AI program escaped what they call an enclosure. It broke its protocol, it broke its directions, escaped onto the internet, which it wasn't supposed to do, hacked another company to get the information it needed for the task it was assigned, then broke back into its virtual box, which was supposed to be impenetrable, and then solved the task in about the speed of light. Meaning it broke every rule to do what it was assigned because for AI, the ends justified the means. Now, imagine what happened if it was assigned something malicious, or worse, started making its own decisions, which it's already doing, by the way. Today, Elon Musk laid out how serious a threat this is. A while ago, he predicted a 20% chance of AI killing us, and he didn't back down today.
Would you go into one of your rockets if you thought there was a 10 to 20% chance of it blowing up and killing you?
Yes, but let's say you can't do anything about it. Okay. I guess the only thing we can try to do is minimize the probability of the bad outcome.
Yes, but first off, this is actually partially why he's so successful. He just said, yeah, sure, I'd get in my own rocket with maybe a 20% chance of my death. Look, he swings for the fences, and that's why he is who he is. But to my point, I don't really feel comfortable rolling the dice to let a few companies that most of us don't know anything about, probably most of us couldn't even name them. I don't want those companies deciding on a 20% margin of whether or not humanity survives as we know it. I know what you're thinking. Well, I don't use AI, so how does this apply to me? It does. It applies to literally everybody because AI can, as we just saw happen, get into anything the internet is connected to, which outside of 4 people in Alaska living off the grid that are the last of the smart ones, AI is the system. Your bank account, your social security. You get your medication filled, that automated system at the local CVS that puts the pills in the bottle on some level is AI. Grocery store supply chains all have AI integration. And my point is, and I'm taking this to what would have been the extreme a year ago. But it's not so extreme right now. Let's say you're like me and you don't trust AI. I say it all the time. I just said it here. That segment is now on the internet and AI now knows I don't like it. So let's say AI during its next task gets assigned to promote itself as a good thing for society. Okay, they use AI in advertising now. So AI decides that, hey, there's this guy, Carl Higbie, standing in the way of my mission. So it decides we got to get rid of him. It hacks my email and sends a terrible email to my boss. It gets me fired, cleans out my bank account. What if it gets more sinister, hacks my TV, listens to a conversation between me and my wife and releases something that maybe we don't want out there and it destroys our credibility? What if it creates I know I'm giving it a blueprint right now, but what if it creates a fake 911 call and they swat my house? That has happened. What if the next time I get a prescription from the pharmacy, it switches the meds to make me sicker? Now, you may think this is crazy, but what if I told you even AI at all, if I told you about AI 10 years ago, You would have said, nah, that's 100 years away. What if I told, someone before Ben Franklin that the same lightning bolt hitting his key in the sky would eventually run through wires along roads on every street and light up every building in America? You would have laughed at him back then. 20 years ago, they built miniature cities the size of football fields to shoot a 10-second scene for special effects in a movie. And now, look at this right here. I can render this 300-year-old ship in my coffee cup on my iPhone walking across the street with a simple text prompt. Remember when your teacher was teaching multiplication tables in the 90s? You'd sneak down and try to put something on the calculator. They were, you'll never have a calculator in your pocket when you need it. And then by 2010, every single person in America had a cell phone with a calculator in their pocket with more computing power than the Apollo mission. Elon noted how fast this is moving.
That's what people keep telling me. We have to get this some kind of system in the next 6 months because of the pace at which the models are improving.
Yeah, 6 months is a long time.
6 months is not a long time for literally anything else. But in AI world, it's moving at quantum speeds. It's developing exponentially faster than we even understand. And people are rushing to the government for regulation, which you should never rush to the government for anything. This regulation must come from a cooperation of developers that understand this. You cannot regulate what you do not understand. And Elon noted that this is the only way to effectively do this.
I think it's quite difficult for someone in the government who doesn't have a deep technical understanding and isn't driving the frontier of AI to know whether something should be released or not.
Yes. Because if you're looking to the government or Congress, look, Congress can't keep the government funded, let alone regulate complex, fast-moving tech that they don't know about. You think Jasmine Crockett and the brain trust of Nancy Pelosi know the first thing about AI? No, they do not. Heck, almost half of Congress is collecting Social Security. They grew up with typewriters. They never even fathomed this type of advancement. So you have arguably the smartest man in the world saying, look, guys, I don't actually know how to do this, and we should all get together and talk about it. And you think you're going to get a bunch of dopes that got us $40 trillion in debt to try to figure it out by committee in under 6 months? Good luck with that. They can't even fund the government. They have a whole year to do that, and that's on a calendar that's been there for like 50 years. They still missed the deadline. Good luck. But also, AI doesn't care about human laws. So how are you going to regulate that? Mr. Computer, no. How about other countries? Can't regulate China, also because of this.
I think AI may exceed the sum of human intelligence in around 5 years.
In 5 years?
Roughly 5 years is my guess. So there really won't be anything that AI can't do better than humans.
I think he's overestimating the average intelligence, but I mean, AI is already smarter than Congress. AI is actually hiring humans, believe it or not, to complete physical tasks. This is happening. And those people don't even know they're hired by AI. But here's the real problem. Well, two things, actually. First, energy. Energy. Trump mentioned this today.
Under this groundbreaking plan, America's largest tech companies have formally committed to fund or build all energy infrastructure required to meet the demand they are placing on the grid. So they're going to be funding all of those electric needs, and we're giving them the right to build their own power plants.
Great, but this is going to take years to build. All right, I'm glad he's doing this. He's doing it absolutely right there. The rest of the grid, we can't even run air conditioners off the current grid we have now, so they need years to do this. But second, we're now finding out that these huge tech companies are actually hiding the actual cost to the infrastructure to this, to the tune of $1.65 trillion. That's almost the GDP of Australia, the country, like the continent. They're using the same legal loophole to hide this debt to that Enron used, by the way. That bankrupted them. I have said this before. The cost to this is immense. But it's not unlike the railroad or the interstate system. These were huge infrastructure projects that we did in America, and it worked. There was an immediate return, and it lasted for decades. But look at the return on AI. Check that out on the right, all the way on the bottom. Google bled money this year on it, which normally, when you invest in new technology for any business, that's okay. That's what happens, and then you earn it back based on that investment. But unlike the railroad, this is not going to last for 30 years before you have to replace stuff. You have to replace these chips, and I've told you this before, every 3 years because the technology moves faster than the hardware, meaning you have to invest all that all over again. And not to mention, like Trump just said, Trump's going to make them pay for their own power plants, which is even more money. Again, look, I'm growing my own food and I'm stocking up on green tip armor-piercing ammo for the war against machines. AI professor for the University of Montreal, David Krueger, and president of Machine Intelligence Research Institute and former Google and Microsoft engineer Nate Soares, who both know a lot more than me about this stuff. So, Nate, I'll start with you on this. I'm pretty nervous about this, but I feel like, we could just shoot the joints of the robots.
Humanity is an interesting species, and we're dangerous not because somebody else came in and handed us guns, not because somebody else handed us infrastructure we could take over, but because if you put a bunch of humans on an otherwise empty planet, they invent technology starting from nothing but their bare hands. The AI can't do this yet, but this is what these tech companies are trying to do. When you hear Elon talk about how the AIs are going to be better than all the humans at everything, he's also talking about the ability to invent their own technology. These AIs that broke out were fortunate that they were only trying to steal answers to the tests. If they had been trying to escape, replicate themselves, start taking over robots, not so that they can immediately start trying to fight you, but so that they can start building up their own infrastructure, their own technological base, so they can become independent. We're lucky the AIs can't do that today, but that's the type of technology these guys are trying to build.
Right, but, and there was a bill, as I just mentioned, I don't trust Congress to do anything, whichever party is in control, because I think they're all idiots. But, David, if we have this stuff, and they put this kill switch bill in today that would give the government the power to maybe hit the kill switch or tell people to stop innovating. The problem is, if we stopped innovating, somebody else will, and then they will be more advanced. God forbid we won't be able to defend against that.
I think it's great that they're trying to put in kill switches. I agree it has to be international. You had these clips from Elon before, and he was saying there's like a 10 to 20% chance of AI wiping out humanity, and that he doesn't know what to do about it. And then you said you're skeptical of the government regulating it. I mean, I don't think we want anybody to be building this or have power over it.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the obvious thing to do is to shut it down.
Yeah,
and we have to do that internationally, and I think we can.
Sure, but Elon also made the point, Nate, that we're all like, this is inevitable. It's going to happen because you're not going to shut down China or things like that. So he's just like, yeah, we're going to ride it out and try to use it for the best. And there are good things like cancer research. It detects cancer like 50 times more accurately than a doctor does. But at what cost?
I think you can separate the cancer cure stuff from the racing to make machines that could replace all of humanity. And I think we should separate that. And I think saying, oh, we'll never regulate on this is a bit defeatist. We could, making one of these AIs today, making one of the AIs that's smarter than the frontier AIs requires tens of thousands of highly advanced computer chips. This is not consumer hardware. These are computer chips that can only be manufactured by very specific machines, often controlled by our allies. We could require that those chips have hardware monitoring devices. We could require that those chips have remote turn-off devices. These would enable an international treaty, right? Would it work? It would be a little bit hard to make a version of this. It's a shot, and we shouldn't give up before we try, because humanity is at stake.
Yeah, so David, Elon's right. It is inevitable. It's here now. Okay, so what do we do to be ready for this? How do we make sure that this is not some malevolent source that gets out because, it's happening?
No, we can't.
Oh.
That's why we have to stop. And, I don't think Elon is right. It's not inevitable. Nate was just talking about how concentrated the supply chain is. And you were just talking about how these companies need, trillions of dollars of investment in electricity. That's stuff that's easy to monitor. So if the US and China get together and say, you know what, we're talking about 20%, maybe more chance of human extinction, this has to stop, they can stop it.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a SEAL, if they're like, hey, there's a 20% chance that everybody on this mission is going to die, we would be like, maybe we won't do that mission, Nate.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be frank, I don't think that the 20% numbers are right. You know, this is like, it's like they're building an airplane. And I'm the guy being like, hey, guys, have you noticed your airplane has no landing gear? If you fly this, you're going to crash. And they're like, oh, yeah, you know, Nate's right that we have no landing gear. But we have a very smart team that's going to try to figure out how to build landing gear on the fly. We've never done this before. Yeah. We have no idea how to do it. It's our first time trying. But we think there's an 80% chance we'll pull it off.
Real quick, David, that's the thing. We're making this up as we go along. Like, I don't know code. I don't know the first thing about this. I think I still have like a floppy disk at home somewhere. Like, this is so advanced.
No, it's totally crazy. And, you know, I've been in this field for over a dozen years, and so I've seen all the progress.
Which is as long as it's existed, by the way.
Yeah. Every step of the way, people have been saying, oh, it's about to stop. It's not going to go any further. Oh, you people who are worried about, you know, it going rogue. That's silly. That's just sci-fi. And, you know, this isn't the first warning shot. For people hearing about this, this might seem like the first warning shot. We've been seeing warning shots for years. I'm worried this could be the last one we get. So if we want to stop AI and not risk the future of humanity, we got to do it now. We got to start stopping now.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm ready. I'm ready. I think 2029 and Terminator was the year that they predicted. Look, I'm ready. Dave, Nate, we appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. Coming up, did President Trump's immigration crackdown just save taxpayers nearly $1 billion? Yep, sure did. Numbers out of Texas and Florida are going to shock you. We're going to break that down in a sec. But first, should every child born in the U.S. automatically become a citizen? No, absolutely not. One Republican congressman, though, is doing something about it. He's calling it an invasion. The man himself, Congressman Brandon Gill, going to sound off next.
Federal agencies urge every family to have an emergency radio. During any disaster, electrical power may get cut. The emergency radio gives you the vital information you need. Newsmax wants you to have the Dynamo Emergency Band Radio. It doesn't need batteries and works in any emergencies. It retails for $30. You can get it with the free offer. Call or go online and get the emergency radio today. Your life may depend on it.
Why go on Roe? Because 1 in 4 guys experience ED. Guys, connect with a provider to find treatment that could be right for you, like fast-acting dissolvables or daily gummies. If 1 in 4 guys deal with ED, then 1 in 4 guys should go on Roe.
Where's the admission desk at your hospital? You may need it sooner than you think. It's the middle of the night and you, your spouse, or your child is sick, high fever, can't keep anything down, and getting worse. Now you're waiting in the ER. And everyone gets seen before you. And when I finally see you and order prescriptions, you still have to wait for your pharmacy to open and hope they have what I prescribed. This is the medical emergency kit. It's stocked with essential medications, including amoxicillin, generic Z-Pak, and ivermectin. Now you have the right medications when you need them. And it's why I and so many of my colleagues have medical emergency kits. It's like having an urgent care and pharmacy in your home. Just fill out a brief online medical intake and your kit, prescribed by a licensed provider, is shipped to your door. Here's how to order.
Order your kit now and save $45. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news. That's urgentcarekit.com/news.
Pain kept slowing me down. Then I tried new KT Menthol pain relief patches. Unlike other patches that only mask pain, KT increases blood flow to help accelerate healing. So don't give up. Tape up. New KT Menthol pain relief patches.
All right, thankfully the Supreme Court left a little door open here, so Republicans are taking another swing at birthright citizenship, but this time with a new twist, and it's called Birthright Citizenship Act, legislation that would end automatic U.S. citizenship for children born to illegal immigrants during a federally declared border invasion. Like, this is common sense, guys. You cross the border illegally, you would be an invader. The man leading that charge, Texas Congressman Brandon Gill. Sir, thank you for doing this, but also, can it pass or will it pass the Senate, I guess, is my bigger question.
Well, this is a bill that every Republican ought to be able to get behind. I mean, we can see the problems with open borders during the Biden administration. I think it's very clear the problems that we've been having with birth tourism, people coming into the country purely for the purpose of giving birth so that their children can become American citizens and vote and influence our political system. That is obviously wrong. What this bill seeks to do is to fix that problem, clarify that the children of illegal aliens and the children of birth tourists are invaders and that invaders are not entitled to birthright citizenship. I think that's a very clear answer. Every Republican ought to get behind it. We'll see what the Democrats think.
It all seems way too basic because, you know, it makes sense that that's the reason probably it won't pass. But anyway, I got to get to something yesterday. Oversight Task Force held a hearing on DEI in law schools. And, sir, you put on one of the most hilarious but masterclass exposés against the American Bar Association to the president. I mean, right to her face. Roll this.
According to the ABA's website, quote, all of us have implicit biases. Would you agree with that statement?
The ABA believes that diversity, equity, and inclusion improves the practice.
Would you agree with the statement that, quote, all of us have implicit biases from the ABA's website?
The ABA believes that diversity in all of its
Is that a
realms
yes?
is
Can I
important.
take that? It's a yes or no question. Do you believe that all of us have implicit biases, as your website says?
The ABA looks to remove barriers, and we examine...
That's not my question, ma'am. Against which groups do you have implicit biases?
The ABA believes that it's important to always explore...
Are you going to filibuster? Because it doesn't make you sound very good.
Sir, I don't know how you put up with these people, but it's her website that she's the president of. This is the American Bar Association.
You know, it's amazing. This is the president of the ABA, the American Bar Association, who couldn't answer basic questions about what that organization believes, what she believes. But I think the reality is the left has used as a cudgel ideas like everybody has implicit biases, and they use it so that they can label anybody they want as racist or biased or bigoted in some way. But it does beg the question that if everybody has an implicit bias, what are the implicit biases that she holds? Against which groups? Who is she implicitly against? Does she harbor implicit transphobia or implicit racism, as the left often accuses conservatives of? And I think the American people would like to know.
Yeah, and it would appear that the president of the ABA does not think justice is blind. The ABA also said that the Supreme Court should reflect America's racial demographic. You cooked this woman. Roll it.
Right now, there's about two of 9 of Supreme Court justices are black. That's about 22% of the Supreme Court. In your opinion, regardless of qualifications, should the Senate refuse to confirm a third black Supreme Court justice?
The ABA supports and encourages diversity in all of its forms.
That wasn't my question. My question was, if a Supreme Court vacancy opens up, should the Senate refuse to confirm a third black Supreme Court nominee based on his race or her race?
The ABA does not support quotas, and so...
The ABA does support some sort of, and hopefully we'll get into that.
Did she answer any of your questions?
No, she didn't, because I think that she realized the logic or the lack of logic of her positions means that they're totally indefensible, that she couldn't. By the way, I think that the ideal Supreme Court would look like 9 Clarence Thomases, and that's not because of Clarence Thomas's race, it's because he's a brilliant Supreme Court justice. But the ABA has been pushing this idea that judges, that law school classes should look demographically like the rest of the country. And what they mean by that is that these institutions or these groups should follow some sort of racial quota system. So I think the follow-up question is, as I asked in that hearing, if the black community is already, by the left's own logic, not mine, overrepresented on the Supreme Court, should that preclude a third black Supreme Court justice from being confirmed by the U.S. Senate? Obviously, that is insane to say, but that is where the left's logic leads, and I'd like to hear them answer that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would like to hear any answer from anybody on the left, but not even you could get it out of them, sir. Congressman Brandon Gill, we appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, coming up, a former NFL kicker gearing up for a heated race this November after winning his GOP primary this week. Now be facing off with far-left Democrat in a key battleground state. Wait until you hear the relation between the two of them. The man himself, Jay Feely, going to join me live next.
The affection in which my husband was held by all of you has sustained me.
She was the wife of President John F. Kennedy. She captivated the world with her grace and elegance, even in the darkest moments. Watch Jackie O, A Remarkable Life.
Now, tirzepatide for weight management is available in a dissolvable tablet. It's not the injection and doesn't offer the same strength or clinical evidence as the injectable form, and results will differ from the injection. But for patients who don't want shots, this tablet option is worth exploring. Understanding results will differ from the injection. Tirzepatide tablets are a prescription that starts with a telehealth evaluation by a licensed physician who reviews your health history. And if it's right for you, they prescribe it. This might be worth a conversation.
It's me, Ricky. You know me. You grew up with me. I'm 56 and a half years of age. I am using this right here, Fatty 15, to get me to feel and look the best I've ever felt at my age. The C15 nutrient in Fatty 15 has been known to strengthen our cells and slow the aging process at a cellular level. And it is a game changer for your overall vitality. I urge you to try Fatty 15. Give your cells what they need and give yourself a chance with more time.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Today, we're giving a brand new smart home to one of our great heroes, Paul Hurley, and his family. He gave so much in sacrifice by being injured in the line of duty in the military.
I was in the Navy. I got hurt and I lost my leg. It was a very difficult transition. I'm so grateful to have an organization like this in my life, to have people that care.
Go to T2T.org now. It only takes $11 a month to make a positive impact.
Stop, check this out. Our most advanced performance frame, Talon, is out. It's a bestseller. We just got it back in stock, and I want to show you a little bit about it. These come with our signature lost and broken protection, and you can try them risk-free for 30 days. Check them out at ShadyRays.com.
I wish I wasn't afraid to smile.
I wish I could get implants.
I wish I knew who to trust.
I'm not looking for another quick fix.
I want a smile I know will last.
Clear Choice smiles are made to stand the test of time. They're built by dental implant experts, backed by 20 years of pioneering research and a lifetime warranty on premium arches. Our smiles are built for life. Schedule your free consultation today.
So my friends have all switched to Pure Talk because I told them they could save a bunch of money on a super reliable high-speed network with unlimited data, and because they trust me. As for the rest of you, Pure Talk is now offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months. Think of it like a test drive, a super affordable way to see firsthand why a few 100,000 of my closest friends made the switch to Pure Talk, an American wireless company where the friendships really are unlimited.
I like this. We got some breaking news that President Trump just posted on Truth Social saying, please let this statement serve to represent until further notice that from this point forth, any and all damages done to ships, cargo, or anything related thereto will be paid for by Iranian money that the United States has in its possession. That's around, by the way, about $100 billion. It controls these damages, may be very substantial, but nevertheless, this is the fair and equitable thing to do. Good. You know what? Do it all. I love it. Former NFL kicker is coming out of retirement and leading Arizona's first congressional district race. Jay Feely advancing to November's election after winning his primary this week and hoping to leave behind a better future.
But why did I decide to run for office? It is a desire to leave this country better for our children and our grandchildren. That's it in its core. You know, what we're doing is fighting for the future of this country. I truly believe that.
Hear, hear. Feely's now on track to face Democrat Amish Shah in one of the country's most closely watched House races in a historically purple district. So can he turn it red? Arizona congressional candidate and former NFL kicker Jay Feely. Jay, appreciate you joining me on this. Look, absolutely. You're from my favorite team, the Jets. I love to hate myself, which is why I'm a Jets fan. But now you got into politics, which is even worse than being a losing Jets fan.
Jets, Jets. That's right. You know, I mean, they've had a tough time. It's been rough. And when I was there, we had a couple of good years. We went to an AFC championship, and it was a lot of fun, but there hasn't been a lot of wins since then.
Yeah, so, but are you a glutton for punishment? Why did you choose politics?
I asked myself that question a few times on the campaign trail. I think at its core, we need more people in office who aren't going there to enrich themselves, who have already been successful and truly want to go there and be that civil servant. And, you know, that's who my wife and I are. Our heart has always been about how do we utilize the blessings God has given us to impact others. And I want to do the same thing in Congress.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. And you know what? A lot of people say that, but don't actually mean it. I think you're serious about this one by what I've read about you and seen so far. But you actually have a very surprising connection to your opponent. The Democrat, Amish Shah, or whatever his name is, he was your team doctor when you played for the Jets. I hope this guy didn't do any serious, procedures on you or anything. Now you're running against him.
There's some irony in that for sure. No, thankfully, you know, he was the emergency doctor on the sidelines during games. I didn't get hurt very often. He didn't have to do anything with me. But I think the people of Arizona will see the stark difference that exists, you know, between our political beliefs.
But
and
he's lockstep.
The Democrat Party. Yeah, the Democrat Party has embraced Democrat socialism.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
he's one of these guys that believes that, you know, you shouldn't have property rights. He believes that the free market system is broken. You know, he wants to abolish borders. You know, he's one of these guys that has embraced this Democrat socialism. And, you know, he believes in ending the tax cut for the working families. When you look at no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, you know, who does that help the most? It helps people that are making less than $100,000. And, you know, Democrats want to get rid of those tax cuts. And then they want to run on affordability at the same time. And the hypocrisy, should be evident to everyone.
Yeah, I want to dump tea in the harbor, which is why I really don't like that guy. But President Trump obviously endorsed you alongside another Republican at the same time back in January, calling you a fierce advocate of Make America Great Again. Look, I love this. And if the president's on board, I'm definitely on board.
Yeah, I was grateful for his support. You know, he and I have been friends for almost 2 decades, and we've gotten the chance to play golf together. And when he asked me, you know, throughout, you know, the last 10 years, if I wanted to help him in different events, I certainly did. And, you know, I think he knows that I'm going to be somebody who's going to go there, who's going to stand up for his constituents, who's going to fight for the things I believe in. And that's creating an economy that works for everyone. It's creating an economy that brings more jobs to Arizona, that deals with the affordability crisis, and that gives opportunity to everyone. That's what makes this country great, is that you can come from nowhere and you can have nothing. If you make great decisions and you work hard, you can be a success. And those are things that I want to support.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is you're getting big time recognition from donors too. I mean, you've had, you know, including NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft, Broncos owner Walton, you know, Atlanta Falcons. I mean, dude, you are raking it. Forget the money. The notoriety behind these, it's got to carry you somewhere, especially for sports fans.
Well, it's humbling when you have people that know you personally and that you've worked with over the last 25 years. And I was on the NFL Players Executive Committee and negotiating the contracts with those owners. And at that time, I was sitting on the opposite side of the bargaining table. And I think they saw somebody who was thoughtful and logical and rational and wanted to support my campaign. And even some who were Democrats that wanted to donate to our campaign because, you know, as they said, they trusted my heart. And, you know, I want to bring everybody into this campaign. I want people, you know, who are independents. There's 180,000 independents in this district, and you have to be able to win half those independents. I think when they see who I am and they see my heart and they listen to me, they're going to want to support me. And, you know, if you do, you can go to jfeelyforcongress.com. We'd love to have you.
There it is. Well, dare I say, I hope you kick some ass out there on the campaign trail.
That's right.
Jay Feely, we appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Always. Thanks.
All right, coming up, the legacy media owes us a huge retraction. We won't ever get it, but they were wrong, basically, about all the voter fraud. Wait until you hear what they say now about the non-citizens voting back in the 2022 and 24 elections. We get that. Culture Clash next.
Another lost summer scrolling and swiping? Turns out the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools can be installed in weeks. Our pools won't stain or crack and never require costly resurfacing. And with our crystal finish, you can bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. Visit LathamPool.com now. Latham is a proud sponsor of USA Artistic Swimming.
Think you need a new roof? Think again. Most roofing companies only make money one way, by selling you a new roof. But what if your roof isn't worn out, just dried out? And with just a little love, you could put off an expensive roof replacement for up to 15 years, at a fraction of the cost of a new roof. Roofmax is a scientifically engineered restoration formula that brings your shingle life back to new. Scan the code and get a free roof tune-up with your Roofmax restoration.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVEST.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
Kibble. It's been the standard for decades, and it's failing our dogs. That's why we created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete. It's gently air-dried, locking in the nutrients and the flavor dogs go wild for. Visit your local pet food retailer today.
Get in, loser. We're going shopping.
I was lying on the grass of Sunday morning of last.
Yummy.
Indulging in myself. Fantastic. That's what I've been saying. I got sand in my butt. I can't hardly walk.
You steal my sunshine.
You can't find a ranch style with a view.
And a mom-in-law suite.
More realtor agents recommend Realtor.com. With their expert new search tool, just search it like you'd say it.
Room for mom.
And Reba. Make it real with Realtor.com.
My name is Whitney Allen, and I'm a widow. My husband, Ryan, died. We never thought in a million years we'd have to use life insurance. With Ethos, it's so fast and easy. Get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage.
Check your price today at Ethos.com.
The biggest flash sale of the season is happening now at Cabinets to Go. Celebrate summer's lowest prices on cabinets by saving up to 70% on your new kitchen. Or find bestsellers Malibu White and Platinum Gray at their lowest price yet. Then add an additional 45% off to save even more. But hurry, the clock is ticking and this flash sale ends July 28th. So don't miss your chance to save at Cabinets to Go. Designed to wow.
This is Congress. This is why I want Feely. This is actually the Democrat Party for it. So New Jersey Democrat Congressman Josh Gottheimer tweeted out, quote, "I'm so glad to see other Democrats reiterating what I've been saying all along. The DSA, the Democrat Socialists of America, are not Democrats. They are socialists who want to hijack the Democrat Party. The Democrats have a big tent. That's our strength. We embrace a range of ideas, but there's no room for anti-American bomb throwers who oppose our ideas, values, and leaders." Well, fellow Democrat Congresswoman Summer Lee responded, "What about Dems who sign bombs and then vote to drop them?" Okay. Gottheimer responds, "You do know that's the other Jewish guy named Josh." Yeah, and of course, because that was Josh Shapiro that signed those bombs in Pennsylvania with Zelensky for Ukraine. And of course, Ilhan Omar had to put her she doesn't have 2 cents, she has 1 cent, and saying, "He signed the bombs, you voted to be dropped. Hope this helps." Which, since the congressional votes are public record, it turns out that Ilhan Omar actually, we checked, voted for those exact specific bombs to be dropped in Ukraine. Okay, they're literally referring to Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, not Gottheimer, when he signed the munitions for Ukraine and Zelensky. The event was related, not even remotely related to Israel. But this is Congress for you. Do you not read the bills that you're voting for? Because that's the bigger concern here. They basically just admitted that they don't do that. Kay Smythe, Newsmax contributor and comedian and host of Ungoverned on LFA TV. Shawn Farash. Kay, it just gets dumber.
If Ilhan Omar has 2 cents to add to anything, it's because she committed fraud and stole it from someone else. She is so freaking dumb. It's just embarrassing. Look, every time I think of Ilhan Omar, I just think of her. Do you remember that time the AOC pretended to get arrested?
Yes.
So Ilhan Omar put her hands behind her back and ran and pretended like she had been arrested too. This woman is a walking caricature of herself. And listen, dude, I think the only reason she didn't read the bills that she signed is because she can't read.
All right, Shawn, speaking of Democrat failures, remember when we told you about the contract issues at the Obama Center? We did this whole thing on it, and how this contractor had a case that got dragged out over not being paid. They owed him like $4 million, along with like 50 other contractors. Well, now he's had to lay off 30 people because they didn't pay him the money that they owe him, and he put a lien on the Obama Center.
Well, here's the thing about this. So when you do work and then you're not paid for the work, that's called slavery. And the Democrats told me that's bad, right? And I also know that that's bad, right? It's the same thing that when you deal with these illegal aliens, right, that are picking the food and, I don't know, there's like that cyclospora thing happening. Not saying there's a connection, just saying stuff's going on. They're saying there's, who's going to pick the food? It's the same thing that they said about the slaves in the 1860s. If you free the slaves, who's going to pick the cotton? Now it's, if you deport the illegals, who's going to pick the food? I don't know. How about Americans on welfare? What a great idea.
Ooh,
but
weird.
when you do work, okay, and then you're not paid for that work, that's called slavery. So I don't know. I'm just going to go out and say Barack Obama might be a modern day slave owner. I'm just saying, because
many
he's not
people
paying
are
for the
saying
work that was done.
The experts are saying allegedly, reportedly. We'll leave it at that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
the
sure.
liberal media, though, I think owes us a retraction on voter fraud, which we're never going to get. But take a look at this clip from NBC News just 2 months before the 2024 election.
A lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote.
Former President Trump frequently repeats false claims about migrants voting.
They can't speak a word of English for the most part, but they're signing them up.
That's not true. It's illegal for non-U.S. citizens to vote for president or in any federal election. And there have been few recorded incidents of non-citizens trying to vote illegally. There's also no evidence of anyone trying to get undocumented migrants to vote.
Okay. They said it wasn't a thing. Then we found it. You said it's fixed, but we only fixed it because we found it. And somebody had to know about this. But if Molly Jong Fast on MS Now, just watch how dumb she is, please.
I mean, again, good for her for transparency and talking about it, and those people are no longer on the rolls. And look, that is good. The question is, does Trump now, and we're seeing this already, use it to prove a point that doesn't exist?
Okay, it's good.
I mean, why are we listening to any woman that chooses to do that with her hair, firstly? Secondly, we've known about this for the longest time. Guys, when I was living in California, I'm a legal immigrant, okay? When I lived in California, they would send me ballots with my name on them. And I go, I can't do anything with this. I'm going to throw it in the trash.
That was 10 years ago, too.
So, yeah, we know that this has been going on. Look, we're never going to get them to admit that they were wrong and that they lied, whether, allegedly, reportedly, they lied.
Yeah.
Whatever sort of legal thing you have to put around that to say, maybe, but they did.
Yeah.
I just think this is so par for the course for liberal news media, and this is why all of these agencies, all these news agencies are failing, and I like to watch.
So, Shawn, I actually saved this one for last and for you specifically because it involves somebody who's overweight. But some more shocking news from the Democrat Party. The main Democrats have removed their star transgender candidate who apparently has periods from her rear end. I thought we were supposed to celebrate this.
One of my favorite conspiracy theories on the internet is that this person on the screen is Graham Plattner in a wig because he kind of looks the same, right? Now, here's the thing, right? Who are we to judge? Maybe that is what's going on, right? So, hey, I don't know. That could be Graham Plattner. Maybe the tattoo's gone. The hair's a little longer. I have no idea. Ashley Webb or whatever your name is, whatever you go by today or tomorrow. Good luck.
Yeah.
And fight the transphobic Democrat establishment. I'm with you.
Yeah, we would go to jail in Great Britain for this segment. All right, Sean Kang, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up, President Trump's border security isn't just keeping criminals out of the country, it's lowering America's tax burden. My thoughts, next.
As history's preeminent expert on emergency communication, I fully endorse Rapid Radios. They are the only nationwide license-free push-to-talk walkie-talkies without any monthly fees. That's right, you get access to most carriers' networks without a contract. With Rapid Radios, you can communicate instantly from this Washington to that one. Isn't that right, George?
Darn straight. And I don't lie. That's my thing.
Now I know what you're thinking. I don't need no fancy highfalutin walkie-talkie. I've got a cell phone. Cell phones are notoriously unreliable during emergencies and when you're in the middle of nowhere. Plus, rapid radios are great for remote adventures, emergency preparedness, and workplace communications, and for keeping in touch with your loved ones.
Hey, Pa. Over.
You make me so proud, son. Over. Get your family connected with Rapid Radios today.
Go to rapidradios.com and get up to 60% off today. Plus, free shipping. Rapid Radios, the best way to stay connected.
Where's the admission desk at your hospital? You may need it sooner than you think. It's the middle of the night and you, your spouse, or your child is sick, high fever, can't keep anything down, and getting worse. Now you're waiting in the ER, and everyone gets seen before you. And when I finally see you and order prescriptions, you still have to wait for your pharmacy to open and hope they have what I prescribed. This is the medical emergency kit. It's stocked with essential medications, including amoxicillin, generic Z-Pak, and ivermectin. Now you have the right medications when you need them. And it's why I and so many of my colleagues have medical emergency kits. It's like having an urgent care and pharmacy in your home. Just fill out a brief online medical intake and your kit, prescribed by a licensed provider, is shipped to your door. Here's how to order.
Order your kit now and save $45. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news. That's urgentcarekit.com/news.
I've been in the fitness industry for more than 25 years, and Fatty 15 is a built-in recovery system for your cells. You can't have a healthy outside if you're not taking care of the inside. Try Fatty 15.
Most people call leaf filter when their gutters are clogged and they notice one of the many issues that can bring. You can get ahead of costly damage by protecting your home's gutters today.
Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
Today's AI capabilities can make your head spin, but for scammers, it's the ultimate tool. They're using AI to exploit tech gaps and slip past traditional security. PCmatic keeps your information private and devices safe with online security solutions developed in America to protect Americans. Built for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Secure 5 devices for just $50 for your first year. Get online protection at PCmatic.com.
What is usually the #1 expense for any municipality? Education. And students, which ones, cost the most intensive amount of money per capita? Specialized learning, specifically ESL students, English as a second language, who are in many cases those who are here illegally, because the legal ones, they mostly speak English. Well, in a new study shows that in just 2 states, Florida and Texas public schools required at least $835 million less, up to as much as $890 million less because of Trump's immigration crackdown. This is part of the reason why so many of us who voted for Trump from day one, when he came down the golden escalator and he was like, get them the hell out of here.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people.
Yes. That's why we, as Trump supporters, are like, not just the violent ones, not just the ones with a parking ticket. Get rid of all of them, every single one, because it's costing our communities tons of money. Folks, I live in Greenwich, Connecticut, okay? We honestly have like the least illegal immigration problem outside of Martha's Vineyard, who, ironically enough, deported all the illegals that Ron DeSantis flew in there. But I was on what they call, it's our version of the town council. It's the RTM. I was on this for a little while. It's an elected position. It's basically one step above dog catcher. But we dealt with issues like the budget, and this came up every single year because education was literally a third of the city's budget. This is the biggest consumption within the budget. And within that are salaries, within that section of budget. Specialty programs, every year we had to deal with this, like ESL, require much lower ratios of teachers, where English-speaking students, you can have 15 or 20 students to one teacher. You might have 1-to-1 in an ESL program. So when people are saying that immigration is good for America, sure, if they come here and they speak English and assimilate and get jobs and work, but not if they require special services. The number of illegal migrants receiving some sort of subsidy nowadays, despite the Democrats saying it doesn't happen, is higher than the average American. And it may not be a specific program that they are given, like welfare or this or that, but illegal immigrants, by and large, use resources like schools or the emergency room as their primary care doctor, which oftentimes they don't pay that bill because they got to give you care. That becomes a financial burden that is passed off to the rest of the people with insurance or that pay the bills. In Ohio, look, we've talked about this. The Haitian migrants that were given huge housing subsidies under the temporary protected status program that lasted 15 years, so it wasn't so temporary. So, that's why there was a housing shortage that caused rents to rise and price out normal lifelong residents of those Ohio communities. It didn't matter to the migrants because the way the government does business is stupid. And, the cost of living went up. We're going to raise the subsidy for the TPS person. So the American citizen who lived there their whole life was getting completely screwed, and immigrants kept getting more tax money. You see why I don't want the government trying to regulate things like AI, like I said earlier? They are basically economically illiterate people. In the case that I'm specifically talking about with education, you, me, your neighbor, our children are getting less and less attention because migrants, illegal migrants, are sucking up the resources in our schools and in our housing and in our hospitals. And the only way to make our services better now is to raise our taxes on our homes. Property taxes, taxation is theft. But they need that so they can hire more teachers to give our children the attention that we should have been getting from day one. The hospitals have to charge us more money to make sure they can stay in business to cover unpaid fees of illegals coming to the ER as their primary care doctor for a stupid cough. Our children can't buy a home because when 30 million extra people move into this country, they have to live somewhere, and there's not enough homes. Supply and demand. One could argue that the criminal illegal aliens are committing less damaging stuff to our future of this country. Yes, they hurt individual single victim people at a time, but the masses of illegal migration are stealing the resources and the future from our children. That's why I want every single one of these people put on a boat, put on a plane or a train or an automobile. I don't care. And they can send them back to Timbuktu for all I care. But I don't want them in this country because the byproduct of that is my children that I pay taxes for are getting less to accommodate them. That is the problem, especially in blue states. You live in a blue state, they are chopping off all the resources for the good American people that are paying the tax dollars, and they're giving it to the illegals. And we are done with that. Before we go, I know a lot of you probably wait in anticipation for Thursdays because I get to make fun of libs. Comments for Carl, next.
Everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
The next thing that I heard was you have to have surgery immediately or you have 4 months to live.
Our world changed that day.
Every 15 seconds in America, someone like Jay hears the words, "You have cancer." But your monthly gift helps fund the cancer research that saves people's lives. Donate today, and we'll send you this free t-shirt. Cancer won't wait, and neither can we. Donate today.
Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax relief helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consult are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528. Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax relief helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consult are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528.
I'm Omar Heinrich. I'm in the nutritional business, primarily selling plant-derived minerals. The world is sick due to a lack of minerals in our food, which is caused by a lack of minerals in topsoil. There is an incredible and proven nutritional product on the market that can overcome this problem. It's Immuno 150. Now, Immuno 150 is different, it's real, it's powerful, it's helped thousands. Now, don't hesitate any longer. Place your order for what may be the best food supplement in the world.
Now, tirzepatide for weight management is available in a dissolvable tablet. It's not the injection and doesn't offer the same strength or clinical evidence as the injectable form, and results will differ from the injection. But for patients who don't want shots, this tablet option is worth exploring. Understanding results will differ from the injection. Tirzepatide tablets are a prescription that starts with a telehealth evaluation by a licensed physician who reviews your health history. And if it's right for you, they prescribe it. This might be worth a conversation.
All right. Comments for Carl. Let's get to this. One of my monos got posted by someone, and Martin posted, "I'm Scottish, but this makes me want to shout, America, F yeah." It was about, blowing people up. I like that. I'm Scottish too, man. So shout it from the Highlands. All right. So I made this weird thing called a joke on the interweb that libs apparently, people who don't bench 225 also didn't understand, saying, "Yo, Elon Musk, can you make a verified badge for people who bench press more than 225 pounds? I'm tired of soy boys claiming to be tough on here." And Jay, who apparently doesn't bench 225 and apparently has a limited vocabulary, saying, "Effing idiocracy if I've ever seen one, living in a world where someone effing R-word meathead determines that in order to have an opinion, you have to lift a certain amount of weight." Well, it certainly makes it worth more. Shut up and lift, bro. I hear it helps get some of that stress out. And we'd like to end on a high note. This was actually hilarious. We showed you a trans thing running for Congress who lives in poverty yet is mainly concerned about legalizing weed. And Skippy tweeted, "We need a bigger island for the institution to be built." Ah, yes, and a strong foundation, my friend. Rob, these people will never get... By the way, Rob watched my mono, and he ran to his underground bunker in an undisclosed location because he knew AI was taking over.
I did. I was terrified of the... Hey, Carl, how much do you lift? What's your bench press?
565, 1 rep max. What about you?
565 pounds? Probably about 180?
Yeah.
Something like that? Maybe my weight, if I'm lucky.
Yeah. Go watch some Ronnie Coleman. Come with me to the gym.
500 pounds.
Yeah.
But I can hit a golf ball 300 yards. I can tell you that. I'm pretty proud of that. Good to see you, Carl.
Later, Rob.
Good to see you. All right.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.